I never thought our 15th anniversary would end like this. I thought I knew Emma, my wife of 15 years, but that night proved how little I truly understood her. I had been excited, genuinely looking forward to the evening. 15 years of shared memories, quiet routines, little inside jokes that no one else would understand. I imagined a candlelit dinner at our favorite upscale restaurant. Maybe some laughter, perhaps a small toast to the years we'd spent together. I imagined her smile, but not this. We walked into the restaurant together. Emma's grin was bright, almost mischievous, but I didn't question it. I had learned long ago that surprises were her way of keeping life from getting mundane. I opened the door for her, held her hand as we were led to our table, and felt a small flutter of happiness. We were early, so the restaurant was calm, soft music filling the background, the scent of roasted garlic and fresh bread heavy in the air. I ordered a bottle of wine, thinking we could celebrate quietly. Then she leaned over and whispered, "Nathan, the surprise isn't just a dinner." Her tone should have been playful, teasing, maybe even a little romantic. But it wasn't. There was an edge to it, a weight I didn't recognize. She gestured toward the entrance, and I turned just in time to see him walk in. He was tall, sharply dressed, exuding a confidence I immediately found infuriating. Emma stood, took his hand, and said, "Nathan, this is Adam, my new partner." Time stopped. I felt my stomach drop, my mind blank. Adam smiled, a smug, self-satisfied grin, like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. The clinking of cutlery and soft chatter around us faded to nothing. Emma looked at me, expectantly, as if she had rehearsed this scene, and I was supposed to respond with admiration or delight. I sat there for a long moment, drinking in the sight of the two of them. Then I said quietly, almost mechanically, "Charming." I could see the surprise in her eyes, the falter in Adam's smirk. They had expected outrage, tears, maybe even a fight. But instead, I simply signaled the waiter for the check. Just my wine, just my appetizer that I had ordered before their grand entrance. I left cash on the table, folded my napkin, and stood. "Well, enjoy your debut," I said, and walked out without another word. The next morning, I was in my lawyer's office, Miss Harper, a sharp and pragmatic woman, who had guided me through difficult legal tangles before. By lunchtime, divorce papers were filed. Adultery, irreconcilable differences. Simple, clean, effective. My phone exploded an hour later with voicemails and messages from Emma, pleading, yelling, and everything in between. I didn't answer. I blocked her number. I blocked her sister, Claire, who immediately began her own campaign of guilt and manipulation. Silence returned, and it was almost deafening in its calm. For the first time in years, I felt a strange sense of peace. The shock was there, lingering beneath the surface, but was accompanied by a resolve I hadn't known I possessed. The marriage was over. Emma had chosen, and now she would live with that choice. Days later, as the dust settled, the emails began. Long, rambling, self-justifying emails from Emma. How I had overreacted, how I was cold and immature, how she had been honest by introducing Adam. Her words were staggering in their audacity. The idea that someone could rationalize walking into a 15-year marriage and presenting a new partner as a gift of honesty. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Claire joined email frenzy, painting me as a villain, the cruel husband who abandoned a vulnerable woman. They genuinely believed Emma had done nothing wrong. Or if she had, it was trivial. The emails were carefully constructed to guilt-trip me, to make me feel ashamed of their delusion. But I ignored them. Every message, every plea went straight to Miss Harper. I didn't engage. I didn't reply. Meanwhile, I moved into a small apartment that Jesse, my oldest friend, had helped me find. Quiet, manageable, mine. Jesse didn't ask me questions. He simply made me coffee, checked in on me, and let me exist in the calm. Sometimes, I would sit on the balcony at night, looking at the city lights, thinking about the years I had spent believing in a life that had already ended without warning. The calm was heavy but comforting, like stepping out of a storm into a still, warm room. I allowed myself one brief moment of doubt. 15 years. Could I have seen this coming? Could I have sensed the cracks before they became chasms? But the thought passed. Emma had made her choice at the table, and that choice had nothing to do with me. Everything else was just collateral. It didn't take long for her to escalate. When emails failed, she turned to legal maneuvering. Emma's lawyer, a woman with a sharp smile and an even sharper pen, sent counteroffers that were pure fantasy. She demanded the house, spousal support, even an antique from my family collection. Miss Harper laughed quietly when she showed me the proposals. "It's a game," she said, "and they're losing." The antique was mine by explicit mention in my grandmother's will. The house had been purchased before the marriage, though I was generous in my buyout proposal. And the spousal support? Years of bank statements proved I had supported Emma's part-time ventures and flexible work choices, never restricting her in any way. Adam finally made an appearance at mediation. The man's smug aura filled the room. He draped an arm over Emma, whispering comfort, acting like he owned the situation. But Miss Harper had prepared for this. She dismantled every claim, every accusation with precision. She produced a private investigator's report. 6 months of secret meetings, photos, reservations, all documented. The surprise dinner? A planned humiliation, not a moment of honesty. Emma's face went pale. Adam's smirk faltered. Claire sat silently, the weight of exposure heavy in the air. Miss Harper presented the financial records, the evidence of Emma's extravagant spending that coincided with the affair. Each piece of evidence was like a brick, building a wall of truth that crushed their fantasy. By the end of the session, Emma and Adam left quietly. No grand exit, no theatrical defiance. Their narrative had collapsed under the weight of fact. Jesse picked me up afterward. We drove in silence, the city light stretching past us like a ribbon of freedom. For the first time in years, I felt it. Clean, unshakable, inevitable calm. I wasn't sad for Emma or Adam. I wasn't even sad for the years spent. I was focused on the future, on the life I would rebuild. Small victories, quiet peace, justice served without drama. I unpacked my old photos that evening. Pictures from the early days of marriage, moments of genuine happiness. For a moment, a pang of nostalgia. But the thought passed quickly. Those moments belonged to a different story, a story that had ended. I had survived, and that was enough. The days after filing for divorce were strange in a way I hadn't anticipated. The adrenaline from the anniversary dinner had faded, replaced by a quiet tension, a constant hum at the edge of thought. Emma didn't give up easily. The emails continued, but now they carried a new flavor, legal threats, demands, and desperate attempts to paint me as a villain. Every message she sent was carefully copied to her lawyer. Every email a new argument that tried to twist reality. Miss Harper, my lawyer, told me to ignore it, to let her do the work. That was easier said than done. I wanted to scream at the audacity of it all. How could someone walk into a 15-year marriage, bring another man to a celebratory dinner, and then try to claim victimhood? But I didn't. I trusted Miss Harper to navigate this chaos. It wasn't long before mediation was scheduled. I remember walking into that room with Jesse by my side. He didn't speak much, didn't need to. His presence alone grounded me. Emma and Adam were already there, sitting like royalty, Claire flanking Emma like a self-appointed bodyguard. Her face was tight with the strain of self-righteousness, but the confidence in the room came mostly from Adam. He had that smugness that made you want to punch him on sight, a look that screamed, "I own this scenario." Emma started the session by laying out her demands. The house, spousal support, and the antique. She spoke with practiced calm, each word dripping with the kind of entitlement I thought only existed in fiction. Adam squeezed her hand every time she paused, like her argument needed reinforcement from an outside source. Claire nodded eagerly, eyes wide, absorbing every detail as if they were gospel. Then Miss Harper spoke. Calm, deliberate, precise. She dismantled the fantasy brick by brick. She started with the anniversary dinner. The private investigator's report she presented was meticulous. Photos, timestamps, reservation confirmations, all showing Emma and Adam meeting long before that fateful night. The surprise, dinner was anything but. It was a calculated, cruel display meant to humiliate me publicly. Emma's expression faltered. Adam's smirk wavered. Claire leaned forward, whispering something to Emma, but I barely noticed. I was focused on the quiet satisfaction of truth being laid bare. Miss Harper moved to finances. She presented years of bank statements, showing my consistent support for Emma's part-time ventures and personal expenses. Every accusation of financial control crumbled under the weight of evidence. She even had emails where Emma explicitly stated she preferred working part-time, enjoying the flexibility and freedom that came with it. Spousal support? Gone. Then came the antique. Miss Harper held up a copy of my grandmother's will. Every stipulation was clear. The item was mine alone. Emma's lawyer opened their mouth, then closed it. Words weren't coming. There was no way to argue against the documented, legal truth. Finally, Miss Harper addressed the house. We had agreed on a simple buyout or sale. Simple, fair, logical. But Emma wanted the world. She wanted the entire property, claiming emotional distress caused by my abrupt departure. The audacity left me almost speechless, though I kept my expression neutral. But the best moment came with Adam. Miss Harper produced public records, past bankruptcies, failed startups, unpaid debts, even statements from former business partners documenting his manipulative behavior and financial irresponsibility. Adam's confident posture melted slightly. He had no defense here, no armor to hide behind. Throughout the session, Claire's social media activity had quieted. She usually thrived on drama, vague posts that attempted to garner sympathy for Emma. But now she had nothing. Perhaps she realized the narrative had collapsed. Perhaps she had discovered a new outlet for her energy elsewhere. Either way, she was silent, and it was glorious. By the end of the session, the room was heavy with the residue of truth. Emma and Adam left quietly, no theatrics, no grand exit. They had nothing left. Miss Harper turned to me, giving a subtle nod, the kind that said, "This is the moment you take a deep breath and feel the calm." Jesse clapped me on the shoulder as we left. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. For the first time in weeks, I was at my new apartment that evening. I unpacked some old photos, pictures from early in our marriage, the days when Emma and I had been genuinely happy. There was a pang of nostalgia, yes, but not regret. Those were memories of a story that had ended, and I had survived. In the following weeks, Emma continued with her attempts to rewrite reality. Every demand, every claim went straight to Miss Harper. She tried emails, texts, even showing up near my building, hoping to provoke a confrontation. Jesse was there for support, making it clear that any direct approach would be met with calm resistance and the law. It became evident that Emma and Adam were not prepared for the clinical dismantling of their narrative. Each lie, each attempt to manipulate, was met with documents, timestamps, and affidavits. I watched quietly, fascinated and satisfied, as the truth methodically crushed their fantasy world. I began to settle into life on my own. The apartment was smaller than the house, but it was mine. Quiet, manageable, peaceful. I reconnected with old friends, indulged in hobbies that I let slide, and took long walks at night, letting the city lights wash over me. Each day brought a little more freedom, a little more clarity. One evening, I received a call from Jesse. "You got mail," he said, "and it's from a familiar friend." It was a letter from Miss Harper, detailing Emma's final counteroffer. Predictably, it was ridiculous. She wanted everything she had claimed before, plus additional compensation for emotional trauma. Miss Harper smiled when she showed me. "They're done. This is their last attempt at control. After this, it's over." The calm I had felt after the anniversary dinner had evolved into something stronger. It was no longer shock or temporary relief. It was a steady, measured peace. The storm had passed, and yet part of me allowed a brief, fleeting satisfaction in the humiliation of Emma and Adam. Not cruelty, not vengeance, but the quiet acknowledgement that the truth had won, that the deliberate, humiliating act at the restaurant had been exposed, that justice, in the form of documentation, law, and fact, had been served. I spent a few nights reflecting on the years I had lost. 15 years of marriage, 15 years of shared experiences, some good, some bad. There was a momentary pang of sorrow for the wasted time, but it passed quickly. I was focused on what mattered now, rebuilding, moving forward, living my life on my terms. Jesse and I often talk late at night about freedom, about the strange relief of leaving a toxic situation intact. The irony wasn't lost on me. The very act that had destroyed my marriage, the audacity of Emma bringing another man to our anniversary dinner, had also set me free. I started to rebuild my life in small ways. A weekend hiking trip with Jesse, a cooking class I had always wanted to try, reconnecting with colleagues and old friends. Each small step reinforced a growing sense of independence. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. And through it all, I never responded to Emma or Adam. I never needed to. The truth had spoken for itself. Their attempts at manipulation, at guilt-tripping, had failed. Every lie, every dramatic gesture had been undone by methodical, calm evidence. The weeks after mediation were quiet, but tense. Emma didn't show up for the next round of negotiations, her lawyer making excuses about scheduling conflicts and personal emergencies. Adam stayed away, probably sensing that his smug confidence had no place in the courtroom now that the facts were laid bare. Claire had disappeared from social media entirely, her self-righteous commentary replaced by silence. It was as if the whole world had finally acknowledged the truth, even if only quietly. Miss Harper was a constant presence, calmly guided me through each procedural step. Every filing, every counterproposal was met with her meticulous preparation. She had an almost surgical precision in presenting evidence, ensuring that every claim Emma made was countered with facts, documents, or witness testimony. The divorce hearing itself was short. Emma appeared briefly, flanked by her lawyer and, of course, Adam. The courtroom felt heavy with tension, but I was calm, almost detached. I answered questions succinctly, providing only what was necessary. Miss Harper handled the rest. The PI report detailing the affair, my bank statements, the clear stipulations of my grandmother's will, all were submitted as evidence. Every lie Emma had tried to propagate was exposed. When the judge finally spoke, it was clear the house would be sold, the proceeds split fairly, no spousal support. The antique remained mine, as legally documented. Adam and Emma's claims of financial control and emotional distress were dismissed. The courtroom, usually an arena for conflict and drama, felt almost surreal in its resolution. I had won, not through anger, not through vengeance, but through calm, methodical truth. Leaving the courthouse, Jesse clapped me on the shoulder. "Feels good, doesn't it?" he said. I nodded, smiling for the first time in what felt like years. The sense of finality was intoxicating. The chapter was closed. Back at my apartment, the silence was a kind of balm. I unpacked the last of my boxes, each item a small reminder of independence. Books I hadn't touched in years found their places on shelves. The kitchen smelled faintly of fresh herbs and coffee. The space was mine, truly mine, for the first time in 15 years. I allowed myself a brief moment of reflection on Emma. 15 years of marriage had ended in the most audacious way imaginable, yet the aftermath had taught me something invaluable: resilience, patience, and the power of calm. She had wanted a reaction, a scene, a dramatic unraveling, but I had none to give. Her plan had backfired spectacularly, and the satisfaction of that quiet victory was sweeter than any shouted confrontation could have been. Over the next few months, life settled into a new rhythm. I reconnected with old friends, people I hadn't seen in years, and rekindled hobbies I had abandoned. I joined a local photography club, started hiking on weekends, and even took a cooking class. Every small action was a declaration of freedom, a reclaiming of time and energy that had been tied up in a marriage that no longer existed. One evening, as I walked along the riverside near my apartment, I thought about Emma, Adam, and the life I had left behind. There was no anger now, only a detached understanding. Emma had made her choice, and I had made mine. The humiliation, the betrayal, the audacity of that dinner, it was all behind me. I had survived, I had won, and I had grown stronger because of it. Jesse came over that weekend, as he often did, and we shared a quiet drink. "You're different," he said. "Calmer, maybe happier. I can see it." I smiled, realizing he was right. I wasn't the same man who had walked out of that restaurant in shock. I was someone who had faced betrayal, humiliation, and legal battle, and emerged with dignity intact. The final blow to Emma's narrative came quietly. Mutual acquaintances, previously unsure what to believe, had witnessed her erratic attempts to claim victimhood. The documentation from the court, the evidence Miss Harper had presented, and the sheer audacity of her actions left her credibility in ruins. Social media, once her stage for dramatic storytelling, had nothing left to amplify. Her new life with Adam was intact, but the shadow of public exposure and legal defeat lingered. I allowed myself a private moment of satisfaction, not in malice, but in the recognition of justice served. 15 years of shared history, 15 years of trust, and the abrupt end. Emma had tried to control the narrative, to paint me as a villain, but the facts, meticulously documented, had spoken louder than any claim she could make. In the following weeks, I focused on the small joys of independence, cooking a proper meal without compromise, hiking without a schedule imposed by someone else, laughing freely with friends without the constant weight of another's expectations. The apartment felt alive in a way the house never had. It was smaller, yes, but it was mine, unburdened, peaceful. One quiet morning, I found myself looking through old photos, pictures of Emma and me, from the early days of marriage, smiling, young, hopeful. There was a pang of nostalgia, but it wasn't sorrow. It was recognition. Those moments had existed. They were real, but they belonged to the past, not the present. I had moved beyond them. Months later, I received the final divorce decree. Signed, sealed, complete. 15 years had ended, not with a scream or a dramatic confrontation, but with calm, rational closure. I filed the documents away, a reminder of the resilience and patience that had carried me through. Life, I realized, was quieter now, but richer. I had learned to navigate betrayal without losing myself, to assert my dignity without descending into anger, and to rebuild with patience and care. Emma and Adam's chapter was closed. My chapter was just beginning. I started dating again, cautiously, not for validation, not for revenge, but because I was ready to engage with life on my terms. Each encounter was a reminder that I had survived the storm, and now I could choose the calm waters I wanted to sail. And sometimes, late at night, I would sit on the balcony, watching the city lights flicker, the river flowing silently below. I would smile, thinking of the anniversary dinner, the audacity, the betrayal, the shock, and I would feel it. The quiet satisfaction of a life reclaimed, of justice served, of a future that was entirely mine. 15 years had ended in a single dramatic night. But the life that followed, the calm, the freedom, the quiet victories, was mine, and I would never let it go.